morning sun rose over New Jeju Colony like any other day. Tae-sung stood on the balcony of the administration building, watching farmers head into the fields. The colony had been here for 12 years now, and every year it grew stronger. 8,000 people called this place home. They had schools, farms, small businesses, and most importantly, Peace Tae-sung was 47 years old and tired of war. He had spent 20 years in the merchant marines before retiring here. He wanted to grow old watching crops grow instead of dodging pirates in deep space. His deputy, Bora, walked up behind him with 2 cups of coffee. "Another quiet day," she said, handing him a cup. "Let's hope it stays that way," Tae-sung replied. Bora was younger, only 34, but she had military experience. She ran the colony's small security force of 12 people. It was enough to handle disputes and keep the peace. They had never needed more. In the southern farming district, 19-year-old Hyun-woo was helping his father repair a fence. His mother was inside preparing breakfast, and his baby sister was sleeping in her crib. Life was simple here. Hard work, good soil, and a tight community. Hyun-woo had been born on Earth but grew up here. This was his home. At the colony school, Yoonji was setting up her classroom. She was 42 and had been teaching here for 8 years. 30 children would arrive soon for lessons. She loved this job. These kids were growing up without the pollution and overcrowding of Earth. They had room to run, clean air to breathe, and a future full of possibilities. The chief engineer, Dae-hyun, was in the power station running morning checks. Everything looked good. The fusion reactor hummed smoothly, providing power to the entire colony. Water treatment was optimal. Communications were clear. He marked everything green on his checklist. Nobody saw the 3 ships until they were already in atmosphere. The Velkrin raider vessels dropped out of hyperspace without warning. They were massive, ugly things covered in welded armor plates and weapons. The ships descended toward the colony like birds of prey. Bora was the first to notice. Her security console lit up with proximity alarms. She stared at the screen for 2 seconds, not believing what she was seeing. Then training took over. "All units, this is Bora. We have hostile ships incoming. Get to the armory now." Tae-sung ran to the communications room. His hands shook as he activated the emergency beacon. The device would send a distress signal to Earth, but Earth was weeks away. He knew help would not arrive in time. Still, he had to try. The Velkrin ships opened fire on the spaceport first. Energy weapons carved through the colony's only transport ship, turning it into melting scrap. The explosion sent debris flying across 2 city blocks. 17 people died in the first 30 seconds. Bora and her security team grabbed their weapons and rushed outside. They had rifles meant for scaring off wildlife, not fighting alien warships. But they had to do something. They took positions behind concrete barriers and opened fire at the landing. Ships. Their bullets bounced off alien armor. The Velkrin warriors emerged from their ships, and Bora understood immediately that they were going to die. These creatures stood 9 feet tall with 4 arms and thick-plated skin. They wore heavy armor and carried energy weapons that glowed with purple light. There were hundreds of them. "Fall back," Bora screamed. "Get the civilians to the shelters." Her team retreated while firing. 2 of her officers went down, hit by energy blasts that burned through their bodies. Bora kept shooting, kept moving, kept trying to buy time for people to escape. In the farming district, Hyun-woo heard the explosions. He looked up and saw smoke rising from the colony center. His father grabbed his arm. "Get your mother and sister. Run to the emergency shelter." "What about you?" "I'll hold them here." "Go," Hyun-woo ran. Behind him, he heard his father's hunting rifle firing. Then he heard different sounds. Energy weapons. His father's voice shouting. Then silence. Hyun-woo burst into his house. His mother was already holding his baby sister, terror in her eyes. "We have to go," Hyun-woo yelled. They ran out the back door. Velkrin warriors were moving through the fields now, firing at anything that moved. Hyun-woo's mother pushed him forward. "Take your sister." "Run! No! Come with us!" An energy blast hit his mother in the back. She fell forward, pushing the baby into Hyun-woo's arms. He stumbled, caught himself, stared at his mother's body. She was not moving. "Run!" Someone grabbed his shoulder. A neighbor, old Mr. Kim. "We have to run now." Hyun-woo ran, clutching his sister, tears streaming down his face. At the school, Yoonji had gotten all 30 children into the basement. She locked the reinforced door and told them to be quiet. The children were crying. terrified by the sounds of explosions and screaming from outside. "It's going to be okay," Yoonji whispered, holding them close. Help is coming, but she knew the truth. She had seen those ships. She had heard the weapons fire. Nobody was coming to save them. Heavy footsteps sounded above. The ceiling shook. Metal screeched as something tore through the school's roof. The children screamed. Yoonji held them tighter. The basement door exploded inward. A Velcrin warrior stood in the doorway, its forearms holding weapons and scanning devices. It looked at the children with cold eyes. Then it spoke into a communicator in a language Yoonji did not understand. More warriors came. They grabbed the children roughly, dragging them out despite Yoonji's protests. When she tried to fight, they hit her. Everything went black. Tae-sung was still in the communications room, transmitting everything he could. Colony records, population data, attack footage. He had to make sure someone knew what happened here. The Velcrin were broadcasting too, he realized. They were streaming the attack across space as a warning to other colonies. A warrior kicked down the door. Tae-sung kept typing, kept transmitting. He felt 4 hands grab him and lift him up. He looked into alien eyes and saw no mercy there. New Jeju colony. He gasped into the communicator. Attacked. Please help. The warrior's weapon charged. Purple light filled the room. The attack lasted 3 hours. When it ended, 1,500 colonists were dead. 2,000 more were dragged onto the Velcrin ships in chains, including all 30 children from the school. The pirates stripped the colony of food, medicine, technology, and anything valuable. Bora woke up in the ruins of the security station. Her leg was broken and her uniform was soaked with blood. She crawled outside and saw hell. Buildings burned. Bodies lay in the streets. Survivors wandered in shock, calling out names of loved ones. She found Hyunwoo sitting against a wall, holding his infant sister. The baby was crying. Hyunwoo was not. He just stared at nothing with empty eyes. Are your parents? Bora asked. Hyunwoo shook his head. Dae-hyun emerged from the power station. He had hidden when the attack started and the shame burned on his face. But he was alive and he was an engineer. The colony needed him, the beacon, he said. Did it go out? Tae-sung was transmitting when they killed him, someone said. They gathered in the ruined town square. 300 survivors out of 8,000. The Velcrin ships were gone, leaving only destruction behind. New Jeju colony was broken, but the beacon still pulsed into space. A small light in the darkness. A message traveling at the speed of light toward Earth. New Jeju colony. Attacked, please help. It would take 6 days for that message to reach home. 6 days of waiting. 6 days of hoping someone would answer. 6 days of survivors burying the dead and wondering if anyone in the universe cared that they had suffered. Bora looked at the ruined colony, at the traumatized survivors, at young Hyunwoo holding his orphaned sister. She looked at the empty sky where the Velcrin ships had vanished. They'll pay, she whispered. Somehow they'll pay for this. The beacon kept pulsing. The message kept transmitting. And somewhere far away, humanity was about to receive very bad news. 6 days after the attack, the distress signal from New Jeju reached Earth. It arrived at 3 a.m. Geneva time, at the United Terran Command Headquarters. The night officer on duty watched the transmission and immediately called Admiral Ji-won. Ji-won was 52 years old and had commanded the Terran Defense Fleet for 8 years. She had seen combat reports before. She had read casualty lists and reviewed battle damage, but nothing prepared her for what she saw on that screen. The Velcrin had broadcast the attack live. They wanted other colonies to see it. They wanted humanity to know that humans were prey. The footage showed warriors laughing as they dragged children onto ships. It showed Tae-sung's final moments as he transmitted colony records. It showed murder and cruelty for entertainment. Ji-won watched the entire recording without expression. Her staff stood behind her in silence. When it ended, she stood up and walked to the window. Dawn was breaking over Geneva. Somewhere out there, beyond the sky, beyond the stars, monsters were celebrating what they had done. Get me the Terran Council, she said quietly. Now. Within hours, the emergency session began. The council chamber filled with representatives from every human colony and nation. Secretary of Defense Won Shik, a 61-year-old veteran of Earth's last major war, sat at the head table. Chief Diplomat Min Seo stood to present her recommendation. We should pursue diplomatic channels, Min Seo said. She was 45, experienced in negotiations with alien powers. Military escalation could destabilize the entire region. The Velcrin operate beyond treaty borders. Other alien governments tolerate them because they maintain a certain balance of power. If we attack, we risk wider conflict. She continued her argument. Negotiation, ransom payments for the captives, economic sanctions, diplomatic pressure on neighboring powers to intervene. All reasonable approaches that respected galactic politics and avoided war. One Shik listened patiently. Then he stood up and pressed a button. The council chamber's main screen lit up with the full new Jeju recording. "Watch," he said. The council watched. Some turned away, some wept. All felt rage building inside them. When it ended, One Shik spoke. His voice was calm but hard as steel. "For 50 years we have been peaceful. We left Earth to give humanity room to grow without conflict. We built colonies light years away, raised families, and asked only to be left alone. We have been diplomatic, patient, restrained." He paused, looking at each council member. "And now they tell us that when our children are enslaved, when our people are slaughtered for entertainment, we should negotiate?" The vote took 15 minutes. It was unanimous. The Terran Defense Fleet was authorized to respond with all necessary force. No limitations, no restrictions. Bring them back and make sure this never happens again. Admiral Jiwan returned to Fleet Command and began issuing orders. Captain Sangwoo was the first person she called. He was 38, her most trusted officer and commander of the TDS Retribution. "How fast can you assemble a response fleet?" Jiwan asked. "What size are we talking about?" "Everything." Sangwoo was quiet for a moment. "Everything. Every ship we can spare. Every Marine we can deploy. Every weapon system we have. This is not a rescue mission, Captain. This is a message to the entire galaxy." Within a week, the fleet assembled. 47 warships gathered in orbit above Earth. 8 massive dreadnoughts, the largest ships humanity had ever built. 24 cruisers equipped with experimental weapons. 15 destroyers for fast attack runs. 200 fighter squadrons. 12,000 Marines in full combat armor. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled for a single operation. Officer Yuna briefed the fleet commanders. She was 29, head of intelligence, and she had spent years studying the Velcrin. She knew their tactics, their technology, and most importantly, their location. "The 3 ships that hit New Jeju returned to their main base," she explained, pointing at star charts. "A station called the Crimson Maw, built inside a hollowed asteroid. It's the center of Velcrin operations in this sector. Approximately 100,000 pirates live there, protected by 36 warships and heavy defensive weapons." "How do we know the captives are there?" someone asked. "Intercepted communications. The Velcrin brag about their raids. We have recordings of them discussing New Jeju survivors. They are there." The fleet prepared for departure. Engineers loaded weapons. Doctors stocked medical bays. Marines checked their equipment again and again. Everyone knew this was different from anything humanity had done before. Captain Sangwoo walked through the Retribution, talking to his crew. They were nervous. The Velcrin had terrorized the outer colonies for decades. They were known for their brutality and their strength. Many people whispered that humanity was picking a fight it could not win. Sangwoo gathered his officers in the briefing room. Among them was Dongmin, his tactical officer, 43 years old and brilliant at combat mathematics. There was also the medical staff, engineers, and combat pilots. "I know you are scared," Sangwoo said. "The Velcrin have a reputation. They are big, strong, and they have been raiding colonies for generations. But here is what they do not know about us." He pulled up footage of human military training, Marines moving in perfect coordination, ships executing complex maneuvers, weapons hitting targets with computer precision. "They think we are weak because we choose peace. They think we are prey because we avoid conflict. They have never fought an organized military force. They raid farmers and teachers. They attack the defenseless and call themselves warriors." Sangwoo looked at each officer. "We are not farmers. We are not defenseless. And we are going to teach them the difference between patience and weakness." The fleet launched 3 days later, 47 ships engaging their hyperspace drives in synchronized sequence. It was beautiful and terrifying. The largest concentration of human military power ever assembled, heading toward the outer rim. Admiral Jiwan stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching Earth disappear behind them. She thought about Tae Sung, trying to transmit information as he died. She thought about Bo-Ra and her security team, fighting with rifles against energy weapons. She thought about Hyunwoo holding his baby sister in the ruins. She opened a fleet-wide channel. Every ship, every marine, every pilot heard her voice. The Velkrin believe humans are weak because we choose peace. They believe we are prey because we avoid conflict. They think that because we build instead of destroy, we cannot fight. Today we prove them wrong. She paused, letting her words sink in. We are not going out there for revenge. We are going for justice. We are going to bring our people home. And we are going to make absolutely certain that no one ever thinks they can attack humanity without consequences. The fleet traveled for 3 weeks through hyperspace. During that time, Yuna continued analyzing intelligence. They intercepted more Velkrin communications. The pirates were celebrating. They were selling new Jeju captives as slaves. They were planning more raids on human colonies. They thought humanity would do nothing. Captain Sang-woo used the time to drill his crew. Combat simulations, emergency procedures, weapons drills. By the time they reached Velkrin space, every person knew their job perfectly. Marine Commander Jae-hyun, a 31-year-old veteran, trained his assault teams. They practiced boarding operations and urban combat. They studied the layout of the Crimson Maw. They prepared to fight in tight corridors against larger, stronger enemies. Size does not matter, Jae-hyun told his Marines. Skill matters. Tactics matter. We fight smart. We fight together. And we win. Fighter pilot Subin, 26 years old and the top pilot in her squadron, ran flight simulations endlessly. She learned every trick, every maneuver, every way to exploit the Velkrin's traditional tactics. When the fleet finally emerged from hyperspace in Velkrin territory, they were ready. Not eager, not excited. Just ready to do what needed to be done. All ships report, Admiral Ji-won ordered. One by one, the 47 vessels confirmed operational status. Weapons charged, shields at maximum, Marines in their dropships, fighters in their launch tubes. Captain Sang-woo, take us in. The fleet advanced into Velkrin space. They were not sneaking. They were not hiding. They flew in formation, broadcast on all frequencies, and let everyone know humanity had arrived. The hunt had begun. The Crimson Maw hung in space like a fortress of nightmares, 30 kilometers across, carved from a hollowed asteroid covered in weapons and armor plating. For 3 generations, the Velkrin had used it as their base of operations. No one had ever successfully attacked it. No one had ever dared. Grothak stood in the command center watching the human fleet approach. He was the station's warlord, a massive Velkrin with scars covering 3 of his 4 arms. He had led raids across a dozen sectors. He had seen civilizations fall. He was not worried about these humans. 36 ships against 47, he growled. But we have the fortress. We have the weapons platforms. They will break against our defenses like water against stone. The 3 raider captains who had attacked New Jeju stood beside him. They were celebrating, drinking, and joking about the humans who thought they could fight back. They still had video recordings of the raid. Sometimes they watched it for entertainment. Should we broadcast another warning? One captain asked. Show them what happens to humans who challenge us? No, Grothak said. Let them come. Let them die. Then we will raid their homeworld and show them true fear. The Velkrin defense fleet moved to intercept. 36 warships in loose formation, confident and aggressive. They had fought smaller alien races before. They always won through superior numbers and brutal tactics. Boarding pods, overwhelming firepower, and fearless aggression. Admiral Ji-won watched them come. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, perfectly calm. Captain Sang-woo commanded the vanguard from the Retribution. Officer Yuna monitored communications, listening to the Velkrin chatter about easy prey and quick victory. All ships maintain formation, Ji-won ordered. Let them come to us. The Velkrin attacked in their traditional swarm formation. All 36 ships rushing forward together, firing plasma cannons, launching boarding pods, trying to overwhelm through aggression and numbers. It had always worked before. It did not work against the Terran defense fleet. The human capital ships formed a defensive sphere. Their shields absorbed the plasma fire easily. The boarding pods launched toward human vessels, but point defense lasers tracked and destroyed each one. Hundreds of small lasers firing with computer-guided precision, burning through the pods before they could reach their targets. Return fire, Admiral Ji-won said quietly. The human fleet responded with carefully coordinated volleys. Railguns fired, sending tungsten projectiles through space at devastating velocity. Electromagnetic pulse missiles streaked toward Velcrin ships, detonating and disabling their systems. Energy weapons designed by human engineers specifically for military combat, carved through alien armor. Dongmin sat at his tactical console aboard the Retribution, running calculations with cold precision. He was no longer just a tactical officer. He was death itself, calculating trajectories that would end thousands of alien lives. He felt no pleasure in it. It was simply mathematics. 3 targets aligned, he reported. Single shot can penetrate all 3. Fire, Captain Sangwoo ordered. The railgun slug punched through the first Velcrin cruiser, destroying its reactor. The projectile continued, still traveling at incredible speed, and hit the second ship's engine section. The remaining velocity carried it into the third vessel, disabling its weapons. 3 ships neutralized with 1 shot. The Velcrin had never seen anything like this. Their plasma cannons, effective against civilian ships and smaller military forces, were useless against proper military shields. Their boarding tactics failed completely against point defense systems. Their aggressive rush put them in perfect firing solutions for human weapons. Fighter pilot Subin led her squadron through the Velcrin formation. The alien ships flew in loose clusters, relying on individual skill rather than coordinated tactics. It made them predictable. She exploited gaps in their formation, targeting vulnerable points that computers identified in real time. Her fighter rolled under a Velcrin battlecruiser, avoided defensive fire, and launched missiles at the sensor array. The explosions blinded the ship. Other fighters followed her lead, working in coordinated teams, hitting engines and weapons with surgical precision. The Velcrin tried to adapt. They spread out, tried different formations, attempted to focus fire on individual human ships. Nothing worked. The Terran fleet moved like a single organism, ships covering each other, tactics flowing from careful planning rather than brute aggression. After 40 minutes, 23 Velcrin warships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors fled back to the Crimson Maw's defensive perimeter, seeking shelter under the station's weapons platforms. Grothak watched his fleet shatter and felt fear for the first time in his life. These humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. No wasted movement. No emotional charges. Just cold, calculated destruction. Activate all defensive platforms, he ordered. Every weapon we have. The Crimson Maw bristled with hundreds of automated weapons. Plasma cannons, missile launchers, and energy beams all firing at the approaching human fleet. It was an impressive display of firepower. Admiral Jiwan watched the defensive fire splash against her ship's shields. She let the Velcrin empty their weapons, let them believe their fortress was holding. Then she gave the order. Launch Marines, begin the assault. 20 dropships launched from the fleet. Each carried 150 Marines in powered combat armor. They approached the Crimson Maw from different angles, using the weapons fire as cover. Point defense systems cleared paths through the defensive fire. The dropships hit the station's outer hull and immediately began cutting through. Plasma torches melted armor plating. Marines poured through the breaches like water-finding cracks. Marine Commander Jae-hyun led the first team inside. They entered a docking bay filled with shocked Velcrin. The aliens grabbed weapons and charged, expecting close combat to favor their size and strength. The Marines did not charge back. They took defensive positions and opened fire with military precision. Armor-piercing rounds punched through Velcrin armor. Grenades cleared choke points. Tactical coordination through neural links let the Marines move as one unit. Jae-hyun's team pushed forward through corridors too narrow for the massive Velcrin to use their numbers effectively. Every turn was a kill zone. Every junction a carefully executed tactical maneuver. The Marines advanced room by room, deck by deck. Other teams moved toward different objectives. One group headed for the power core. Another pushed toward the detention levels where captives were held. A third team fought toward the command center where Grothak and his captains waited. The Velcrin fought back with desperate fury. These were their homes, their families, their territory. But desperation does not defeat discipline. Fury does not beat tactics. For every Marine who fell, 10 Velcrin died. Young Hyunwoo, against direct orders, had hidden aboard one of the dropships. He carried medical supplies and followed the assault teams, staying behind the fighting. When Marines went down wounded, he was there to help. His hand shook, but he kept working. Medical officer Hae-won found him treating a wounded Marine in a corridor still smoking from combat. "You are not supposed to be here," she said. "Neither are you," Hyunwoo replied, not looking up from his work. Haewon knelt beside him and helped stabilize the wounded soldier. Around them the battle raged. Explosions echoed through metal corridors. But in that moment, they saved a life together. Jaehyun's team reached the detention levels. Behind reinforced doors they found the captives. Nearly 1,400 prisoners from New Jeju and other colonies. Some had been there for weeks, others for years. All traumatized, starving, barely alive. Teacher Yoonji was there, still protecting the children from New Jeju. When the door burst open and she saw human Marines, she collapsed in relief. The children cried, but this time from joy. "You came," Yoonji whispered. "You actually came for us." "Always," Jaehyun replied. "Humanity never abandons its own." Another team reached the command center. Grothak and the 3 raider captains waited with their personal guards. 50 of the biggest, most experienced Velkrin warriors armed with the best weapons, prepared to make their last stand. The humans breached the door, and the Velkrin charged. It was a brutal close-quarters battle. The Marines were outnumbered, but their armor and training kept them alive. When Velkrin attacked with 4 arms, humans responded with tactical teamwork. When aliens tried to overwhelm with strength, humans used precision. Grothak himself killed 2 Marines before a railgun shot from a squad weapon took off one of his arms. He roared in pain and rage, still trying to fight. The raider captains died trying to escape. One got 3 steps before armor-piercing rounds cut him down. When the fighting ended, Grothak knelt in his own blood, missing 2 arms and beaten. Captain Sang-woo arrived via hologram, transmitted from the Retribution. "Negotiate?" Grothak gasped. "I have resources, technology, I can pay." "No," Sang-woo said simply. "You showed no mercy. You received none." The battle for the Crimson Maw lasted 31 hours. When it ended, the station was occupied by Terran Marines. The Velkrin defense fleet was annihilated. Prisoners were being evacuated to hospital ships. The cost to humanity was 117 casualties and 23 ships damaged. None destroyed. The Velkrin lost over 8,000 killed, their primary stronghold captured, their myth of invincibility shattered forever. 3 months after the siege of the Crimson Maw, the galaxy was still processing what had happened. News traveled slowly through space, but the story spread quickly. The Velkrin clans, feared predators of the Outer Rim for 3 generations, had been broken in a single day by humanity. The surviving Velkrin scattered to distant systems. Their ships fled beyond mapped space, always watching for human warships. Pirate attacks on human colonies stopped completely. Slavers who specialized in human captives released their prisoners or disappeared into the void. The Outer Rim, once lawless and dangerous, became quiet. On Earth, the captured Velkrin raiders faced trial at the Terran Justice Station. It was broadcast across all human space and transmitted to alien governments who wanted to watch, Captain Sang-woo testified, presenting evidence carefully collected over months. Decades of raids, thousands of victims, entire colonies destroyed or enslaved. The 3 raider captains who survived the Crimson Maw assault were brought before the court. They looked smaller now without their weapons and armor. Just criminals facing justice. They had expected to negotiate, to trade information for lighter sentences. Humanity was supposedly soft and forgiving. Grothak, missing 2 arms and covered in surgical scars, was defiant even in chains. When asked if he regretted his actions, he spat on the courtroom floor. "We are warriors. We take what is weak. This is the way of the galaxy. You humans pretend to be civilized, but you are just like us. You proved it at the Crimson Maw." Admiral Ji-won, presiding as senior military authority, listened patiently. When Grothak finished his speech, she spoke quietly. "You are not warriors. You are murderers who preyed on defenseless people. Warriors face their equals. You attacked farmers, teachers, and children. You broadcast their suffering for entertainment. You are not a warrior. You are a coward who finally met someone willing to fight back." She paused, looking at each of the defendants. "We are not like you. We did not enjoy what we did at the Crimson Maw. We took no pleasure in killing. We did not broadcast your deaths for entertainment. We fought because you left us no choice. We fought to protect our people and to ensure this never happens again. That is the difference between justice and cruelty." The verdict was unanimous. The sentences were carried out according to Terran law. The trials concluded, and the galaxy learned that humanity did not forgive atrocities. Meanwhile, the survivors of New Jeju faced a different kind of trial. The government offered them relocation to safer core worlds, far from the dangerous outer rim. Most colonies hit by the Velcrin accepted such offers, abandoning their homes for security. New Jeju voted to return. Hyun-woo led the reconstruction effort. He was 20 years old now, but looked older. The fleet had offered him a position in the Marines after seeing his courage during the siege. He declined. His place was home, rebuilding what the Velcrin destroyed. The Terran government sent resources. Engineers arrived to rebuild the power station. Construction teams repaired buildings. Agricultural specialists helped restore the farms. But most importantly, they sent a permanent garrison. New Jeju would never be defenseless again. A military base with 2 warships, a marine company, and defensive satellites now protected the colony. Teacher Yoon-ji reopened the school 6 months after returning. The building had been rebuilt, larger than before. The 30 children who survived sat in new classrooms, learning again. They carried scars visible and invisible, but they were home. One day a child asked the question Yoon-ji had been expecting. Will the bad aliens come back? Yoon-ji thought carefully about her answer. She could lie, tell them they were completely safe, or she could tell them the truth. The Velcrin will not return, she said. The galaxy learned something important. They learned that humans protect their families. They learned that we will travel across the stars to bring our people home. They learned that there are consequences for attacking us. Another child raised their hand. Are we still scared? Sometimes, Yoon-ji admitted. Being scared is normal. But we are not alone anymore. We have soldiers protecting us. We have each other. And we know that if something bad happens, humanity will come for us. Always. Colony Administrator Bora walked through the rebuilt streets of New Jeju. Her leg still hurt from the injuries she suffered during the attack, but she refused to leave. This was her home. These were her people. The colony looked different now. Memorials to the fallen stood in the central square. Defense towers dotted the perimeter. Military transports flew regular patrols overhead. But between all that, life continued. Children played. Farmers worked. Businesses reopened. Bora stopped at one memorial, running her fingers over Tai-sung's name. The former administrator who died transmitting the distress signal that saved them all. We made it, she whispered. Your message reached Earth. They came for us. You saved us. The beacon that once called for help now broadcast a different message to passing ships. New Jeju colony. Attacked, survived, thriving, welcome. On Earth, the political situation shifted dramatically. Chief Diplomat Min Seo found her office suddenly very busy. Alien governments that previously ignored human diplomatic requests now wanted meetings. The Valdari Confederation, a major galactic power that barely acknowledged humanity's existence, sent ambassadors requesting formal talks. Min Seo met with a Valdari diplomat in Geneva. The alien was polite, almost respectful, which was new. Your military capabilities were unexpected, the diplomat said carefully. We wish to discuss mutual defense agreements and technology sharing. Why now? Min Seo asked. We have been requesting meetings for 20 years. The diplomat was quiet for a moment. Because we did not believe you were relevant. We assumed humans were passive, weak, suitable for exploitation or ignoring. The Crimson Maw taught us otherwise. Min Seo smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. So you respect us now because we proved we can kill efficiently? We respect you because you proved you will protect your own. In this galaxy, that matters more than peaceful intentions. Secretary of Defense Wan Shik faced similar meetings with other alien powers. They asked about human weapons technology. They wanted to know fleet capabilities and military doctrine. They were nervous, he realized. Nervous about what humanity might do next. Wan Shik showed them footage of the Crimson Maw siege. Not to threaten them, but to explain. Humanity seeks peace, he said. We left Earth to give our people room to grow without conflict. We built colonies light years away because we wanted to avoid war. But we will not be victims. We will not watch our children enslaved while others tell us to negotiate. He looked at each alien ambassador. Remember what you saw here. Remember that we fought to defend, not to conquer. We destroyed the Velcrin because they left us no choice. We could do the same to anyone who makes the same mistake. Or we could be allies, trading partners, friends. The choice is yours. The meetings ended with several new treaties. trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, technology exchanges. Humanity's position in galactic politics changed overnight from ignored newcomers to recognized power. Admiral Ji-wan retired after 5 years of commanding the expanded fleet. At her ceremony, colonists from New Jeju attended. Hyunwoo was there, now a decorated officer after eventually joining the military. Eunji brought her students who sang songs of thanks. Bora presented Ji-wan with a gift, soil from New Jeju mixed with seeds from Earth. "For the garden you planted across the stars," Bora said. Ji-wan accepted the gift with tears in her eyes. She had spent 5 years expanding the defense fleet, establishing patrol routes, protecting colonies. She had aged 20 years in that time, but looking at these people, alive and thriving, made it worthwhile. She spoke her final words as admiral to the assembled crowd. For 50 years, humanity reached for the stars seeking a better future. We built colonies, raised families, and pursued peace. When that peace was shattered, we did not seek revenge. We sought justice. We showed the galaxy who we are, a species that protects the innocent, honors the fallen, and never abandons our own. She paused, looking at the faces before her. Human and alien alike, we are humanity. We are unstoppable not because of our weapons, but because of our resolve. We are unstoppable not because we seek war, but because we refuse to be victims. We are unstoppable because when you hurt one of us, you face all of us. The crowd erupted in applause. The fleet saluted. The galaxy watched and remembered. Years passed. Human colonies expanded, secure in the knowledge that they were protected. The Terran Defense Fleet patrolled the stars, vigilant and ready. New ships joined the fleet. New officers trained in academies that taught the lessons of the Crimson Maw. Hyunwoo, now a captain commanding his own ship, patrolled the sector where New Jeju was located. He visited home regularly, watching his colony grow stronger each year. The pain of losing his family never fully disappeared, but it transformed into purpose. He protected others so they would not suffer as he had. On distant worlds and hidden stations and places where predators gathered to plan raids, they whispered about humanity. They shared stories of the Crimson Maw. They warned each other about attacking human colonies. They look peaceful, the stories went. They seem weak because they choose not to fight. But push them too far and they will cross the galaxy to find you. They will bring warships, marines, and justice. The Terran fleet moved through Velcrin space like sharks through shallow water. Captain Sang-woo led reconnaissance missions from the Retribution, searching for the raiders who attacked New Jeju. Officer Yuna worked day and night analyzing every transmission, every piece of data, tracking the 3 killer ships. After 2 days of searching, they found a lead. A Velcrin merchant convoy was traveling through the system, 5 large freighters carrying stolen goods from raids. Yuna intercepted their communications and confirmed they had information about the New Jeju attackers. "They know where the raiders are," she told Sang-woo, "and they are bragging about it." Sang-woo positioned the Retribution to intercept. The Velcrin convoy detected the human ship and immediately broadcast threats. The convoy commander, a veteran raider named Vorthak, had attacked human colonies before. He had seen their small defense ships with light weapons and weak shields. "Surrender your cargo and pay tribute," Vorthak demanded, "or we will take your ship and sell your crew." Sang-woo's response was one word. "No," the Velcrin laughed. Vorthak could not believe these humans were challenging him. His 5 freighters were each larger than the human ship. They were armed with plasma cannons that had destroyed dozens of colony vessels. "He had done this hundreds of times. You chose death, human. We will add your ship to our collection." The 5 Velcrin freighters powered up their weapons. Plasma cannons glowed red, ready to fire. Vorthak gave the order to attack. The Retribution's shields absorbed the first volley easily. The plasma impacts looked impressive, creating bright flashes and energy ripples, but they barely drained the shield capacity. The Velcrin weapons were designed for intimidation and for use against unarmored civilian ships. They were not built for military combat. Dongmin, the tactical officer, sat at his console calculating firing solutions. He was 43 years old and had spent 20 years studying weapons systems. He understood physics, mathematics, and how to make tungsten projectiles travel at 0.4% of light speed. "Firing solution locked," he said calmly. "Fire," Sang-woo ordered. The Retribution's railgun fired. The tungsten slug, accelerated to incredible velocity by electromagnetic forces, crossed the distance to the first Velcrin freighter in less than a second. The projectile hit the shields, which were designed to deflect energy weapons, not solid matter, traveling at relativistic speeds. The shields collapsed. The projectile continued through the ship's hull, through 3 decks, through the engine core, and out the other side. The freighter exploded, torn apart by the kinetic impact and its own exploding reactor. The Velcrin stopped laughing. What was that? Vorthak screamed into his communicator. What kind of weapon? Dongmin was already calculating the next shot. Second target locked. The railgun fired again. The second freighter lost its engine section, dead in space and venting atmosphere. The remaining 3 vessels tried to run, but their hyperspace drives needed time to charge. Launch fighters, Sang-woo ordered. Fighter pilot Su-bin led her squadron out of the launch bay. 20 small, fast ships streaking toward the fleeing Velcrin vessels. The freighters tried to shoot them down with their plasma cannons. But hitting a fighter doing evasive maneuvers was much harder than hitting a stationary colony. Su-bin was 26 and had been flying since she was 18. She understood physics and momentum. She knew how to use the enemy's size against them. Her fighter dove under one freighter, rolled to avoid defensive fire, and launched 2 missiles at the hyperspace drive assembly. The missiles hit. The freighter's drive exploded, stranding it in normal space. The other pilots followed her example, targeting engines and weapons with surgical precision. Within minutes, all 5 Velcrin ships were disabled or destroyed. Cease fire, Sang-woo ordered. Prepare boarding teams. Marine Commander Jae-hyun led his troops onto the surviving Velcrin vessels. The Marines moved in coordinated units, their powered armor making them strong enough to match the Velcrin's physical advantages. But more importantly, they had training, tactics, and discipline. The Velcrin tried to fight. They were big and strong and angry, but when they charged, they ran into organized fire teams that moved like a single organism. When they tried to set ambushes, the Marines detected them with thermal sensors. When they tried to overwhelm with numbers, the humans simply fell back to defensible positions and picked them off methodically. Jae-hyun found Vorthak hiding in the convoy commander's quarters. The Velcrin was wounded and terrified. This was new for him. He had always been the predator. Now he understood what prey felt like. "You are coming with us," Jae-hyun said. They brought Vorthak to the Retribution's brig. Officer Yuna interrogated him personally. She showed him footage of New Jeju. She showed him the children being dragged onto ships. She showed him Tae-sung dying while trying to call for help. "We are looking for 3 specific raider ships," Yuna said quietly. "You tell us where they are and you live in a prison cell. You refuse and we leave you floating in space." Vorthak looked at the human woman. She was small, less than half his size, but her eyes were cold and certain. He looked through the window at the Terran warships. He had heard stories about human military forces, but they were always dismissed as exaggerations. Now he saw the truth. "The Crimson Maw," he said. "They returned to the Crimson Maw 3 weeks ago." "Tell me everything," Yuna said. Vorthak talked for 6 hours. He gave them layouts of the station. He described the defense fleet. He listed the warlords and their territories. He betrayed everything, hoping only to survive. The fleet moved on, following Vorthak's information. They hit 3 more Velcrin outposts, destroying ships and freeing prisoners. At each location, they found humans who had been captured from various colonies. The captives were traumatized, starving, and barely alive. Medical officer Hae-won worked 20-hour days treating the rescued colonists. She was 24 years old, too young to have seen this much suffering. She treated physical wounds and documented psychological trauma. Every freed prisoner added fuel to the fleet's determination. Among the rescued was a group from New Jeju, 17 colonists who had survived 3 weeks of captivity. They were brought to the Retribution's medical bay. Hae-won recognized young Hyunwoo among them, but barely. He had aged 10 years in 3 weeks. His baby sister had died in captivity from illness. "I am sorry," Hae-won said, not knowing what else to say. Hyunwoo just nodded. His eyes were empty. When Jae-hyun came to check on the rescued colonists, Hyunwoo approached him. "I want to join the Marines." "You are not trained." "I can learn. I need to do something. I cannot just sit here." Jae-hyun looked at the young man. He saw himself at that age, full of rage and grief with nowhere to put it. He made a decision. "You work logistics. You help prepare equipment. You stay away from combat." "Understood." "Yes, sir." The fleet continued hunting. They tracked Velkrin supply lines, destroyed pirate hideouts, and freed more captives. Each victory brought them closer to the Crimson Maw. Each battle taught them more about their enemy. The Velkrin were not prepared for organized military forces. They were raiders, not soldiers. They relied on fear, superior size, and overwhelming their victims. Against disciplined troops with superior technology and tactics, they fell apart. Officer Yuna compiled all intelligence into a comprehensive report. She presented it to Admiral Jiwan and the fleet commanders. The Crimson Maw is their capital, their fortress, their symbol of power, she explained. It has never been successfully attacked. 36 warships defend it, along with hundreds of weapon platforms. Approximately 100,000 Velkrin live there, including the 3 raider captains who attacked New Jeju. Defenses? Admiral Jiwan asked. Heavy shields, automated weapons, and they can launch all 36 ships within 10 minutes if they detect a threat. It is a fortress that has stood for 3 generations. Until now, Jiwan said quietly. The fleet gathered at the edge of the system containing the Crimson Maw. 47 warships holding position, preparing for the largest battle in human history. Captain Sang-woo reviewed his orders one final time. Marine Commander Jae-hyun briefed his troops. Fighter pilot Su-bin checked her systems again. In the logistics bay, Hyun-woo helped Marines load ammunition. His hands shook slightly. A medic noticed and approached him. "First battle?" she asked. "I was at New Jeju." The medic went quiet. Everyone in the fleet knew about New Jeju. It was why they were here. She put a hand on his shoulder. "We bring them home today." Admiral Jiwan opened a fleet-wide channel. Every person on every ship heard her voice. The Velkrin built their empire on suffering. They hide behind walls and weapons, believing themselves untouchable. They think that because they are cruel, they are strong. They think that because they take from others, they are powerful. She paused, looking at the tactical display showing the Crimson Maw. "Today we teach them the truth. Cruelty is not strength. Preying on the weak is not power. And there is no fortress in this galaxy that can protect you from justice." The fleet engaged their drives, moving toward the Crimson Maw at full speed. They were not hiding. They were not sneaking. They were announcing their arrival and daring the Velkrin to stop them. In the Crimson Maw, alarms started blaring. Sensors detected 47 human warships approaching at combat speed. Grothak, the station's warlord,